Good afternoon. This week's Torah portion talks about Korach, and it's one of the most difficult Torah portions that we can ever deal with. Korach was upset that Aaron was the high priest, and he expressed his displeasure. And he expressed his displeasure to many other Jewish people, most notably people who came from the tribe of Reuben. Now, anybody knows that the Reubenites, they were the firstborn of Jacob. So if they were the firstborn of Jacob, they should be in the most important positions. That was taken away from them. But their objection was, if somebody's supposed to take it away from us, it shouldn't be somebody who was also criticized by our father. If we sinned, well, Shimon sinned and Levi sinned. Why is a descendant of Levi now the leader? The Torah comes from Moshe, and his brother Aaron is forever going to be the father of all the priests, all the high priests. This is nepotism. This is not fair. In fact, the service had to be done by the firstborn. Now, I happen to be a firstborn, and I would like to be able to do the service, of course, but I can't. My son is a firstborn, my grandson is a firstborn, and his son is a firstborn. So we would like to do the service. At least maybe my grandson or great-grandson should be able to do the service. Why should the tribe of the Levites forever be relegated as the ones who do the service? I know that there's an opinion, I think it's in one of the Midrashim, that in the future the firstborn will be restored to the priesthood as well as the regular Kohanim. But that'll be a secondary thing. It'll be like a booby prize. The Kohanim Gedolim, the high priests, will forever be from the house of Aaron. The Levites will be Kohanim in the future, but I suspect that the high priest will still be from Aaron HaKohen. So this argument resonated with the children of Reuben, and they participated in the rebellion of Korach. They said that this is unfair. You're taking too much for yourself. God is not an unfair God. And this created a tremendous rebellion, so much so that Moshe Rabbeinu had to resort to putting them to a position where he threatened that they would die if they persisted. And they still persisted. 250 heads of the community wanted to be the high priest because they had been prophets before. Through the Matan Torah, they had reached the level of prophecy. They were firstborn. They were great scholars. They might have been even righteous men. And they felt they did not participate in the sin of the golden calf. So why should they lose out? This is not just because some of their tribe might have had the mistake. They couldn't do anything about it. They either didn't see, they didn't know, they didn't have the strength. Why should they be relegated to non-servants, not to be able to serve? It just seemed to be over the top. It seemed to be unfair. It didn't just seem, it is unfair. And so the first, maybe, I can't say the first, but the first to articulate the fairness doctrine was Korach. Of course, we know that it has nothing to do with fairness. It has to do with merit. And even though we could not see it, we didn't see, look, I've got a big beard. And people see me, they think I'm the equal of other people with big beards. The truth is not. It's not that way. It's not the beard, it's the Jew, it's the service, it's the self-sacrifice, it's the love, it's the devotion that makes for a religious man. Just because they were scholars and they had prophecy and they had wisdom did not mean that they could be the priests. And of course, it was shown. They were burned. Those who tried to be the Kohen Gadol were all burned at the altar by a fire that came from God. The people who participated in this rebellion were all swallowed up. What happened the next day? The next day, after all of Israel saw that Moses made a test in front of them, he says, look, you all know that I've got power because I'm a great man, I'm a great scholar, I'm a prophet of God, and I put my life out for you, so you might say that God will protect me as a person and therefore will punish those that stood up with me only for my prestige. But if it's not a sin against me, what if this is a sin against God? How do I prove it to you? I will prove it to you by saying that the death that these people will have, will be through something that no man had ever died before. The earth should open its mouth and swallow them alive. And then you will see that this is something that had never happened before. That this must mean that these people angered God, not me. They didn't start up with me, they started up with God. And that happened. Right then and there, the earth opens up its mouth and they swallow the entire families of those who rebel against Moshe, against Aaron. And Korach, who's the instigator, dies by burning and is swallowed up too. His family gets swallowed up, but his children remain near the surface because at the very last moment they said, Moses is true and his way is true, his Torah is true. Moshe emes v'seirasei emes. And they succeeded in surviving, and they became the great Levites of our history. In fact, one of their descendants was Samuel, who in spirituality, in prophecy, was the equivalent of Moses and Aaron. And so, Korach is burned and swallowed up, and they see it. The leader of the rebellion and all those who are his helper are all died by a miracle from God. What do the people do? Instead of realizing what a mistake they made, they demonstrate against Moshe Rabbeinu the next day. They say, you killed God's people. Because of your anger, God was upset because of your anger. Had you not been so angry and so selfish, this wouldn't have happened. And as a result of that, God intervened on behalf of Moshe and Aaron, because the life of a Jew, the physical life of a Jew, not just the spiritual life, is dependent on their relationship with Moses. Our relationship with the Rebbe is what determines our own success in our own life. At any rate, by questioning Moshe again after what they had seen, there's no other way of showing them other than how wrong they were, and they began to die. And the only way that they lived was by Aaron intervening on their behalf. But as quick as Aaron was, as quick as Moshe Rabbeinu sent them, please save Klal Yisrael, save the people, 14,700 people died. 14,700 people died. There must have been 10 times as many, 20 times as many, must have been hundreds of thousands of people demonstrating against Moshe Rabbeinu. What's going on? The answer is Korach said to them, God could not be unfair. God is not unfair. And if God is not unfair, then Moses has got to be wrong. And even after Korach died, and even after his people got swallowed up, the people still, the argument that God could not be unfair resonated within them. Throughout our history, the Levites and the Kohanim were the last line of defense against total assimilation, destruction of our people. Ezra was a Kohen. He was a scribe, and he was the student of Baruch ben Neriah, who was the student of Jeremiah, Yirmiah. Ezra was the man responsible for the continuity of the Jewish people, and he had to stop assimilation in its tracks, and he had to confront the goons, the gangsters, the tycoons of their day, who were from the Moabites and other Gentile groups, with whom many of the priests and many of the Israelites intermarried with. And he stopped the intermarriage. And he was very unpopular among those people. Those people tried to destroy the Jewish people by bad-mouthing them in front of the emperor. That's why the construction was stopped for a while. And the whole holiday of Purim took place around that time because of the activities of Haman. Haman wasn't just, he wasn't a Persian. Haman came from the land of Israel and badmouthed the people of Israel, the Jews, the Judeans. So the one in charge was Ezra. And the people who he confronted sent Haman to stop it, to get Ezra out of the way. And they almost succeeded. But Ezra didn't care. Ezra confronted all of them. Then a couple of 100 years later, 150 years later, there was the Hellenists. People began to intermarry and to accept the ways of the Greeks. And it was the majority of the Jewish people. Certainly those outside of Israel, the diaspora, became basically like the Greeks. They didn't even know Hebrew. They only read Greek. That's why the Torah could be written in the Greek language, because Jews, the majority of Jews in the world, could read Greek better than they could Hebrew. And the ones who stood up and said that this is destroying our people, because they didn't just become assimilated. The Greeks wanted to dominate us and destroy our spiritual lives. Who stood up? Matisyahu and his children. Guess what? They were the children of Aaron. And today, there are many people who champion this doctrine of fairness. First of all, it's not fair that there should be a chosen people. And it's not fair that the Jews should be on land that had been owned by the Arabs. Don't make a difference that God had given the land to the Jews, that this was our traditional homeland. They want to claim that it's not. They want to deny the Torah. But today, who are the Korachs of today? Those who say it's not fair. It's not fair that only 300, 400 soldiers die and 40,000 Palestinians have been killed. This is not a contest to see how many people can die. If you're the head of an army, you diminish the possibility of the deaths of your soldiers. You want to maximize the deaths of your enemies. But here is where these people, the fairness people, they go ahead and go on a limb and accuse Israel of being genocidal. The number of civilian casualties compared to military casualties, soldiers, combatants, militants, is almost 1-to-1. At the most, it's 1-to-5. When the United States attacked Iraq, Afghanistan, and other places, the ratio was 3-to-1. And that was because the United States wasn't looking to destroy the civilians. In other wars, the civilian deaths might have been 20-to-1, 10 to 20-to-1. Realize that we bombed Dresden in World War II, caused over 120,000 deaths in one night. They bombed Tokyo, over 100,000 deaths in one night. Bombing of Tokyo had more deaths than Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And these were not military targets. These were civilian targets. They targeted civilian areas in order to get the Japanese to surrender. Israel is not attacking civilian targets. It's the military targets are found in civilian areas, which is why there are civilian casualties. We're talking about such brave people that hide behind the skirts of women and the high chairs of little children. That's how brave they are. They're not willing to go out and fight fairly, and therefore Israel had a choice. They could have bombed them to Kingdom Come, which would have caused a tremendous amount of civilian deaths, but it would have gotten the war ended earlier. And maybe in the end, there would have been less civilian deaths. But fact is, anybody who says fairness is just like Korach. Fairness is not a doctrine, and fairness is not, it may be an argument, but fairness has got nothing to do with the truth. It may be unfair that women and children have to die for the sins of Hamas. It may not be fair, but it's the only way forward. Israel cannot live and exist with Hamas going to attack it at any day. They have to be removed. And anybody who accepts the fairness doctrine is a student of Korach.